had any objection to Mr. Camperdown. Mr. Camperdown was Sir Florian's lawyer, said Lizzie. That will make it all the easier, I should think, said Lord Fawn. I don't know how that may be, said Lizzie, trying to bring her mind to work upon the subject steadily. Mr. Camperdown has been very uncourteous to me. I must say that, and, as I think, unfair. He wishes to rob me now of a thing that is quite my own. What sort of a thing? Asked Lord Fawn slowly. A very valuable thing. I'll tell you all about it, Frederick. Of course, I'll tell you everything now. I never could keep back anything from one that I loved. It's not my nature. There, you might as well read that note. Then she put her hand back and brought Mr. Camperdown's letter from under the Bible. Lord Fawn read it very attentively, and, as he read it, there came upon him a great doubt. What sort of woman was this to whom he had engaged himself because she was possessed of an income? That Mr. Camperdown should be in the wrong in such a matter was an idea which never occurred to Lord Fawn. There is no form of belief stronger than that which the ordinary English gentleman has in the discretion and honesty of his own family lawyer. What his lawyer tells him to do, he does. What his lawyer tells him to sign, he signs. He buys and sells in obedience to the same direction, and feels perfectly comfortable in the possession of a guide who is responsible and all but divine. What diamonds are they? Asked Lord Fawn in a very low voice. They are my own, altogether my own. Sir Florian gave them to me. When he put them into my hands, he said that they were to be my own for ever and ever. There, said he, those are yours, to do what you choose with them. After that, they oughtn't ask me to give them back, ought they? If you had been married before, and your wife had given you a keepsake, to keep for ever and ever, would you give it up to a lawyer? You would not like it, would you, Frederick? She had put her hand on his, and was looking up into his face as she asked the question. Again, perhaps, the acting was a little overdone, but there were the tears in her eyes, and the tone of her voice was perfect. Mr. Camperdown calls them Eustace diamonds. Family diamonds, said Lord Fawn. What do they consist of? What are they worth? I'll show them to you, said Lizzie, jumping up and hurrying out of the room. Lord Fawn, when he was alone, rubbed his hands over his eyes and thought about it all. It would be a very harsh measure on the part of the Eustace family and of Mr. Camperdown to demand from her the surrender of any trinket which her late husband might have given her in the manner she had described. But it was, to his thinking, most improbable that the Eustace people or the lawyer should be harsh to a widow bearing the Eustace name. The Eustaces were by disposition lavish, and old Mr. Camperdown was not one who would be strict in claiming little things for rich clients. And yet here was his letter, threatening the widow of the late baronet with legal proceedings for the recovery of jewels which had been given by Sir Florian himself to his wife as a keepsake. Perhaps Sir Florian had made some mistake, and had caused to be set in a ring or brooch for his bride some jewel which he had thought to be his own, but which had in truth been an heirloom. If so, the jewel should of course be surrendered, or replaced by one of equal value. He was making out some such solution when Lizzie returned, with the morocco case in her hand. "It was the manner in which he gave it to me," said Lizzie, as she opened the clasp, "which makes its value to me." Lord Fawn knew nothing about jewels, but even he knew that if the circle of stones which he saw with a Maltese cross appended to it, was constituted of real diamonds, the thing must be of great value. And it occurred to him at once that such a necklace is not given by a husband, even to a bride, in the manner described by Lizzie. A ring, or brooch, or perhaps a bracelet, a lover or a loving lord may bring in his pocket. But such an ornament as this, on which Lord Fawn was now looking, is given in another sort of way. He felt sure that it was so, even though he was entirely ignorant of the value of the stones. "Do you know what it is worth?" he asked. Lizzie hesitated a moment, and then remembered that Frederick, in his present position in regard to herself, might be glad to assist her in maintaining the possession of a substantial property. "I think they say its value is about £10,000, she replied. £10,000! Lord Fawn riveted his eyes upon them. "That's what I am told. By a jeweller?" "By what jeweller?" "A man had to come and see them about some repairs or something of that kind. Poor Sir Florian wished it, and he said so." "What was the man's name?" "I forget his name," said Lizzie, who was not quite sure whether her acquaintance with Mr. Benjamin would be considered respectable. £10,000! You don't keep them in the house, do you?" "I have an iron case upstairs for them, ever so heavy." "And did Sir Florian give you the iron case?" Lizzie hesitated for a moment. "Yes," said she. "That is, no, but he ordered it to be made, and then it came, after he was dead." "He knew their value, then?" "Oh dear, yes, though he never named any sum. He told me, however, that they were very, very valuable." Lord Fawn did not immediately recognise the falseness of every word that the woman said to him, because he was slow, and could not think and hear at the same time. But he was at once involved in a painful maze of doubt, and almost of dismay. An action for the recovery of jewels brought against the lady whom he was engaged to marry, on behalf of the family of her late husband, would not suit him at all. To have his hands quite clean, to be above all evil report, to be respectable, as it were, all round, was Lord Fawn's special ambition. He was a poor man, and a greedy man, but he would have abandoned his official salary at a moment's notice, rather than there should have fallen on him a breath of public opinion hinting that it ought to be abandoned. He was especially timid, and lived in a perpetual fear lest the newspapers should say something hard of him. In that matter of the swab he had been very wretched, because Frank Greystock had accused him of being an administrator of tyranny. He would have liked his wife to have £10,000 worth of diamonds very well, but he would rather go without a wife for ever, and without a wife's fortune, than marry a woman subject to an action for claiming diamonds not her own. "I think," said he at last, "that if you were to put them into Mr. Camperdown's hands, and then let the matter be settled by arbitration." "Arbitration? That means going to law?" "No, dearest, that means not going to law. The diamonds would be entrusted to Mr. Camperdown, and then some one would be appointed to decide whose property they were." "But they're my property," said Lizzie. "But he says they belong to the family." "He'll say anything," said Lizzie. "My dearest girl, there can't be a more respectable man than Mr. Camperdown. You must do something of the kind, you know." "I shan't do anything of the kind," said Lizzie. "Sir Florian Eustace gave them to me, and I shall keep them." She did not look at her lover as she spoke, but he looked at her, and did not like the change which he saw on her countenance. and he did not like the circumstance